Hey, race fans, Hall of Famer Darrell Waltrip here. You know it's time to drop the green flag on another edition of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic. So, hey, pull those belts tight one more time. Here's my buddy Hermie Sadler and Senator Bill Stanley. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's see what they have to say, boys and girls.
Welcome to the beautiful Stanley Law Group studios, high atop the Stanley Law Group law firm building, right in downtown, beautiful city of Richmond, capital of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm leaning right.
I'm former NASCAR driver Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left. Episode 3.
Episode 3. We made it to 3.
Earnhardt.
They have not fired us yet. Put it up.
Not yet. Earnhardt 3. Today is one I'm looking forward to. Senator Stanley, you and I both over the last couple of weeks have had the opportunity to get to know football legend LaVar Arrington, and come to find out he's got a few more things in common with us than I thought.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. In fact, he gave me his digits, and I've only stalked him by text about 50 times. So I think he hasn't unfriended me yet or whatever, blocked me yet.
Don't push it, because I think he potentially might do that.
Well, he's bigger than me, too. So
Because, did you know, LaVar, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
To Leaning Right.
Yes.
Turning left. We got a lot to talk about today, including all of our initiatives to support small businesses.
Indeed.
Across not only the Commonwealth of Virginia, but nationwide. Football career. I'm going to test your NASCAR knowledge or lack thereof.
Okay. Let's
all
do
that.
both of those.
But, we've also, we got to go back and revisit. A couple weeks ago, we had the honor of being introduced by Senator Stanley.
That's right.
On the Senate floor here in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
You guys made me famous. I mean, everybody talks about it to this day. They want you back.
Let's go back.
There's a Washington Post reporter. She can't ask you directly for an autograph, but I'm going to have to come back with one, so if that's okay with you.
Let's do it.
That way I get some good press finally in the Washington Post. I know you're used to getting good press in the Washington Post.
I used to work for the Washington Post.
Yeah, they hate me.
Yeah, I used to write for them.
They hate me.
Well, I would have did a little bang-up piece on you if I was still there, but I'm not there anymore.
Can you get your job back?
I don't want it back.
Why is that?
Because I live in California now. So I would have to live in D.C., I would assume, to work for the Post.
Well, you can do digital writing now. And
that
one
is
thing,
true.
Speaking of that, I want to dive deep into your guys' careers in sports broadcasting. You guys were professional athletes, successful at your sport, well known for what you did, and then you transitioned into, quite frankly, sportscasting, which in its own right has its own fame, notoriety, and even you reach more people on a daily or weekly basis. So I do want to ask both of you those questions, since I'm not a sportscaster, never have been, always wanted to be a sportscaster and an athlete.
You're doing it right now. You're hosting right now. And you're doing a fine job. You're doing a fine job, by the way.
Yeah. So if this Senate thing doesn't work out for you, and if you keep hanging out with me, it probably won't.
Yes.
Then you'll have something to fall back on.
Well, you know what? I'm looking forward to my future every day now, because usually I come here to Richmond, it's just like, what's going to happen today? What's happening next? In fact, they're doing points of personal privilege right now on the Senate floor, going back and forth. It's been getting a little chippy between the Democrats and Republicans since day one. Obviously, the Democrats were used to having power in the Senate, the House, the governor's mansion, the lieutenant governor, even the attorney general. Now they've only got the Senate at a 21-19 majority for the Democrats. They call that the brick wall caucus, where they're going to slow down or stop anything that we try to do. But at the same time, all we seem to do is argue, which we usually don't do in the Virginia State Senate. We usually try to find a way to reach common ground. We may differ on the way to get there, but we usually have the same goals. It's not that way anymore in Virginia. I hope it returns that way. We'll see what happens the next couple of years.
And that's his leaning right moment
of
the day.
Brought to you by the Stanley Law Group, high atop the Stanley Law Group building.
Okay, so let's set the table a little bit. LaVar, we were kind of brought together by Pace-O-Matic.
Correct.
We all, you've learned a little bit, I'm sure, over the last couple of weeks. We filed a lawsuit, Senator Stanley and I, against the outgoing governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Ralph Northam, Attorney General Mark Herring. A lot of people get kind of put their spin on it, get confused about really what our lawsuit is about. Ultimately, the issue is skill games, but the big thing we're fighting against is government overreach into small business. A government coming in and saying, you can't operate your business like that because now this person has a license to do it and you don't. And through that process, Bill and I through our relationship with Pace-O-Matic, launched this podcast to kind of give us a vehicle to weekly be able to update people that listen to these shows about the status of our lawsuit, as Bill just did, what's going on in the General Assembly of Virginia, and then meet people like you that are out in the field trying to also get people to understand the importance of companies like Pace-O-Matic and the revenue they produce and provide for a lot of small business owners and operators all across Virginia, but especially in rural areas like Bill and I are from, Emporia and Southwest Virginia. And you bring a whole different spin to it, a whole different element to it. And we appreciate you on behalf of Bill and I, appreciate you bringing your name recognition and things you accomplished and using that goodwill to help us with this cause.
It's always been, and first and foremost, very humbled to be here, first and foremost. Secondly, it's absolutely an honor to be a part of what Pace-O-Matic is building and what they're doing and attempting to do, what you guys are doing and working to do. For me, one thing that I learned very early in life is community is everything. If you don't build a good, strong foundation within your community, then you become a person that's on an island, so to speak, and nobody can exist as an island. And so I learned very quickly, once I began playing ball and getting recognition for it, it was always a vehicle for me to be able to do good. If I couldn't accomplish and use my accomplishments to represent something good, represent good people, represent good things, good acts, then I was probably not maximizing what I was doing. And so for me, it's always been something I've been a part of. And when I was made aware of and educated on how small businesses were being impacted by the machines being legally taken out of the shops and the restaurants and the different places where they were at, I very quickly understood that there was something that didn't fit. And I wanted to know more about it. And then as I learned more about it, got an opportunity to talk to operators, managers, owners, and just everybody that's within the ecosystem of small businesses. You start to realize very quickly that this is a way for small businesses to stay afloat. And I am a small business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. I had a restaurant at one point in time. And to understand the pressures of what goes into being able to maintain a small business and then for it to be complicated even further, I felt as though this was right for me to be involved because I do so many things that service our community. And this certainly was a synergy and aligned very, very nicely with what I already do within the community.
And you seem like the kind of guy, and I won't be able to jump in here too, if it wasn't a cause that meant a lot to you, whether they paid you or not, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
You can't pay. They can't pay you.
It's not
to
enough.
Advocate for something.
That's correct.
That you don't believe in. As I could tell that from the first time I met you here in Richmond a couple of weeks ago, and Bill, we've been working on this fight, and it continues.
It started in June. On a very hot day, we filed a lawsuit against the state. Everybody said we couldn't win, and we meticulously worked through it, and we won. And ultimately, Hermie's stand was one of principle, standing up for those other small businesses. More importantly, I think what you understood was during the pandemic, we had two things going on. One, you had a pandemic where most people were staying home. It was driving down businesses to small business and their income. And so these convenience stores, sometimes you call them C-stores, truck stops, restaurants, bars, really depended on this income in order to keep their doors open. But not only that, what the Commonwealth of Virginia seems to do is dictate too much and regulate too much the small business, which is the backbone of our economy. So at the same time, we were raising the minimum wage. Now, should the minimum wage have been had been increased? Yes. But you've got to then offer new sources of revenue, especially in an emerging industry like the gaming industry that was coming in here in Virginia. And by intentionally leaving out and picking winners and losers, and that is to say, you small business owner in Virginia can't participate in this new industry because we're letting all of these out-of-state corporations do it, that's where it's unfair. I'm not a fan of gambling, but really what upset me the most was that the very core of what is right and good in the fabric of Virginia couldn't participate in this new industry. It'd be the same as we've also legalized marijuana. Mm-hmm. We seem to want to take that revenue, but what if they said, you know what, you can't grow marijuana in Virginia, you got to grow it out of the state and bring it in. Well, then that cuts off our farmers. I may not agree with the legalization of marijuana, but quite frankly, if you're going to do it, rip the Band-Aid off, let everybody participate. It'll all work out because that's what free market systems do. Mm-hmm. You know, if I want to go play a skill game or my cousin wants to go play a slot machine, well, then we have the opportunity of playing either. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're at the same spot, maybe they're not. But when you say no skill games and no to small business, that's un-American, and it's not the Virginia way that we do things.
You know, talk about small business, all the businesses that I'm responsible for, convenience stores, truck stops, restaurants, UPS store, all things in between. All of our businesses, LaVar, run on percentages. Mm-hmm. So we've learned through the course of time, through some trial and a lot of error, that your payroll figures, for instance, can only be a certain percentage of what your gross sales are.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we know in a convenience store, I've got a number that if my payroll number gets above that percentage amount of my sales, then I'm in trouble. Then you compile that with the fact during the pandemic, our cost of goods is doubled, tripled in some respects. And you got cost of labor, and you got insurance. I just had a 17% increase in health insurance.
Which is a lot.
It's a lot.
That's high.
So then on top of all that, they come tell us, we're just going to take this portion of your revenue, even though we've operated these games legally at our truck stop, as we've discussed many times, since the mid-1980s. They're going to take this revenue and just give it to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I went to advocate, and that's one thing I've told Bill through this process. And he's in a little bit of an awkward position, but for me, a good position of being a legislator and an attorney, because I said, Bill, if you can just get me in front of some of these people and make sure they understand that what they are doing in some of the legislation they pass, how it affects normal, everyday working people. I'm responsible for 250 employees every 2 weeks. Got to make a payroll. Mm-hmm. So when they throw all this stuff and take something from us only to give it to somebody else, it's been a hard pill to swallow. And so that's why it's important for us to have all these voices, LaVar, including yours, taking that message home.
And look, LaVar, when he says I'm in an awkward position, what he means is I'm going to have to talk my way into heaven because I'm a politician and a lawyer.
Sure.
So they're going to be like, hit the
you
down.
got no shot.
Hit the down
You
escalator
got no
on this
shot.
cat. I'm
Right.
like, wait a minute. No. I got skill games back in small businesses. And maybe that's
Indeed.
going to put me in heaven. So that's one of the ways I'm going to work my way back in.
Well, one thing that I'll say in learning so much about the games, the skill games and the skill game industry, I immediately, upon the understanding of it, basically said, well, what's the difference between a Dave & Buster's or a Chuck E. Cheese? If you really think about it, because when I played a game, this is my understanding of it, when I played a game growing up, you were rewarded by completing a stage of the game. Your ultimate goal was I wanted to win the game. So you would try to invest as many quarters as you possibly could into the game to win the game. Now, if you were playing a game that provided you tickets and there was actually an ultimate end to you competing on the game, you were encouraged and you were incentivized to learn how to play the game better. Right. It wasn't being left up to chance. You were actually, through repetition, getting better at it. I've had the opportunity to go to many taverns around Virginia, from the Tidewater area and Norfolk area, being here in Richmond. We're going into Northern Virginia. And the experiences that I've had were educational. It wasn't us sitting there crossing our fingers. Oh, I hope you hit. Oh, I hope you hit a jackpot. It's like, no, here's how you play the game. Mm-hmm. And it's being explained. It's like it's a conversation of how to approach it, the ins and outs of the thought process that goes into playing the game. That in itself was eye-opening for me, Because, again, you can very easily, as a former athlete and as a coach, I coach at this point in my life, at this juncture, I don't leave what I do up to chance. It has to be mapped out in a way where I am preparing and putting our coaches and our players in a position to have success. So when I look at something that says gamble, it's a gamble, it's gambling, it's chance, then that means that there is no growth in terms of what you can do to alter your outcomes, right? So to me, if you have something of that caliber that does not say, not one bit does it say you are gambling, this is chance, boom, you hit it, the technology figures out if it wants you to win or not, plays the percentages the way it does. That's not what this is. So if you are creating another revenue stream, and a significant one at that, in the conversations that I've had with the owners and the managers, it doesn't make sense to try to over-regulate it. It doesn't make sense to try to shut that down if something that is as simple as, well, what if it was a Pac-Man game? Are you upset that there's quarters going in? So what is the fact that they can actually win that bothers you? What is it that it actually bothers? What is it that it actually infringes upon in your heart and in your mind? And if I couldn't get my mind wrapped around what that was and say, okay, that's valid, that makes sense, then for me, I had to be a voice for those who don't have a loud enough voice for them to be able to stress how much of an impact them not having the ability to utilize these machines in their stores.
You want to hear I know you've heard a lot of hypocritical things in your life, as we all have.
I mean, sure.
Okay, as soon as, even before this bill was passed to ban these skill games out of our locations, the casino people had already contacted me and said, if we get these skill games out of your office on Monday,
we'll replace
by
them.
Tuesday, we can put VGTs for video gaming terminals in your store. And guess what? All of a sudden, it's okay. Because really what the casinos want, they don't care if we've got games in our stores and restaurants and truck stops. They just want to be able to regulate them and profit off of them.
Correct.
Monopoly. It's a monopoly.
They want a monopoly on the games. And so I'm glad you recognize, because most people, and I told Bill this, you'd be surprised, and I'm not going to call names, you'd be surprised at how many people right over in that Capitol really have no idea how these games work.
Right.
They have no idea. I'm convinced, probably going to get in trouble for saying this too, I'm convinced that the Attorney General's office that came and argued this case against Bill in the court, they didn't even know how the games work.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair.
You know, and so you have to have a real, when I go to Vegas or Atlantic City and I go to the Blazing 7 machine, I put a quarter in and I kind of like I play golf, hit it and hope.
There you go.
Okay, even though golf is supposed to be a game of skill, to me it's a game of chance. But you go to play a slot machine in Vegas, you put the money in, you pull the lever, hit the button, and you're at the mercy of the machine. But these games, whether they be video skill games that you interact with the game and have a chance to advance further, or whether it's a claw game, or whether it's a coin pusher, or whether it's Galaga or Pac-Man or whatever. And the
Galaga's an amazing game, by the way.
It is.
It is.
I enjoy
But
Galaga.
Classic.
I think, Bill, I think the state has found itself in a little bit of a pickle of trying to make their point on what they believe what games should be banned and why.
Well, and I think it really comes down to this. They, the casinos and the Rosies, which is basically like a mini casino in smaller rural areas, they got the lobbyists, and they pay those lobbyists a lot of money to come and go to fundraisers for senators and House of Delegate members to go into your room and say, this is the way you do it. This is going to help your economy. We can do it this way. We can do it that way. In skill, you're talking about small business people that are working 14 hours a day, don't have time to really come down here and lobbyist. But to me, a small business owner is the most effective lobbyist if they have a voice. And
If
you're
they
that
have a
voice,
voice.
LaVar.
That's
and
right.
you're that voice, Hermie. And Hermie was willing to stake his reputation. He and I got together, and we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast. And I said, and I was giving him crap because I was, against gambling. And then he sat down and kind of told me what was going on. And I said, well, that just doesn't seem fair. So when they passed the bill itself was banning skill games, which would, in effect, if you really read it the right way, which nobody has, it bans Chuck E. Cheese, Dave and Buster's.
Yes.
It bans the State Fair.
King's Dominion.
Yes.
Everything.
Anything,
No more
right.
ring toss, no more skee ball.
Right.
Nothing. They carved out this family exception that if Hermie advertised to families with children, not families without children, not families with one child, families with children, then he would be given an exemption and he could have skill games. It was a horribly written bill. So it was unconstitutional just on that because it was conforming his speech. The government was saying, if you speak the way we approve of, then you can do B. If you don't, then you can't do A. And so we fought it on those grounds, but also, too, that these games have an expressive content. You mentioned it. A video slot machine, not only are the odds manipulated from some little guy, keyboard cowboy out there maybe 2 states away, but more importantly, a game of skill, just like skee ball, just like ring toss, or these video games of skill, you have 100% chance of winning. That makes it different because it's all in the talent of the player that gives you the reward. We also think because it expresses certain ideas in its expressiveness that it is protected under, if you remember, LaVar, there was a Supreme Court case that was saying, the battle games, the blood and gore video games, California was banning them.
Like
And
the Mortal Kombats and stuff.
Right.
Because it was promoting kids were actually doing it in real life.
And so they were
Yes.
trying to ban that
Sure.
from kids. And the Supreme Court said, sorry, that's protected free speech because it's expressive in nature. You may not like the speech, and I've said this even before on the podcast. For me as a lawyer and a politician, the First Amendment doesn't protect speech that we don't care about. The First Amendment protects speech that offends a lot of people or everybody.
Of course.
Because it keeps the government from regulating our thoughts and how we express them. And so these games have that value to them, where a video skill game has that value. A slot machine has none, because just like you said, based on chance, there's no skill, there's no storyline, there's no interaction between player and the machine, where it is in skill. So we were able to argue that, take a unique look at this and say constitutionally what the state did was impermissible. It was impermissible because it infringed upon Hermie and other convenience stores' ability to advertise. And LaVar, if you go up and down Route 58, the way he advertises is he puts his goofy-ass picture on every billboard, like 40 of them. It scares children from the truck stop. It doesn't bring
But they
families in.
remember it.
Here
They
we go.
remember, though.
Here we go.
Yeah, so,
They remember it.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Look, I want to talk about some more fun things, but I want to say just a couple quick things.
see, he's great at changing the subject when I'm
That's
digging
good.
on
Oh,
this.
it's good.
That's a good.
He does that on the phone, but I don't let him
I
get
love
away
the
with
way
it. I'm not letting
he
you
got
get
out.
away.
You got out of the way of the bagging,
Yeah.
so it's all right.
I would never say, and I've said this before, obviously the revenue that my companies earn from these games is important to operating our business, especially in a pandemic. But the reason why I did this, and I think one of the reasons why Bill agreed to take this journey with me, LaVar, is the over 200 other small business owners and operators across the Commonwealth of Virginia that reached out to me by phone, by email, by social media, whatever. The stories of wives and husbands getting their jobs back when we got these games turned back on in December. A lot of people's Christmases were positively impacted because we put these people back to work. Kids benefiting, all those things from getting these games turned back on because we felt like they were wrongly turned off and wrongly banned. That's been a rewarding thing for me, is all the people that we're helping that don't have that platform or that voice that we've got. And the other thing is, and not really asking Bill to comment on this, but he can if he wants to, what I just said has been the most heartwarming part. The most heartbreaking part is there are still legislators in this Commonwealth, in this General Assembly, that are still working to try to find a way to ban these games that are in locally owned and operated small businesses across the Commonwealth of Virginia in favor of out-of-state interests from Vegas and Chicago that want to come in and take their place.
Yes.
I do not understand, and regardless of how we end up with our lawsuit, I will never understand if I were a legislator, and I'm not, Bill, nobody could pay me enough money to kick a Virginia small business owner or take away part of their business to give it to somebody else, especially out of state, only because they had more resources and more money to lobby.
Or strong arm them into doing what it is exactly that you want them to do.
That's exactly right. And what they're doing, quite frankly, is we won this injunction, a very important injunction. I come back to the legislature. A lot of legislators wanted to know what happened, explain it to me. But there were those that were still against skill that are saying, oh, home cooking. Stanley had home cooking down there in Greensville County. They don't know that all the judges in Greensville recused themselves. This was a retired judge. They said, oh, it only applies to Hermie. It doesn't apply to the rest of the convenience stores, which, again, was not true. And then even a gentleman, he who shall not be named, said, this is a ridiculous lawsuit only exceeded by the ridiculous lawyers who filed it. Now, I'm a 27-year practicing trial attorney. I'm damn good. I mean, I started out suing.
And humble. And
yes.
humble.
Well, I'm sorry.
There's a bag. There's a
saying
bag.
I'm
Shot
good
fired.
is humble. Saying I'm
Shot
great
fired.
is the truth.
Oh,
Yeah.
I got you.
So, but in 27 years, I've tried a lot of big cases. You know, I don't mess around. So a lot of people understand that I'm going to bring it seriously through that court system. I'm not going to just do it. I don't do it just for the money. I don't do it. I do it because I hate to lose more than I love to win. And whether it's a shoplifting case that I won right before I came here on a lady that was innocent, I walked out of that courthouse and I was 20 feet tall. Same thing here when we got the injunction in Greensville. I was so happy for Hermie and all the small business owners. And there are people in here who want to almost poo-poo what we did. Oh, yeah, lucky you. Judge was wrong. They even appealed to the Supreme Court. They lost. So I'm getting a little tired of listening to that. What we should do is find a resolution because ultimately, LaVar, this place right over here, there's only one business we have that makes money that the government runs, and that's the ABC store. That's liquor. Quite frankly, we gather revenues from the efforts of others. Well, we're looking at a revenue stream of 130 million, probably more a year. How many schools in urban areas can we fix and modernize to make them look like the shiny schools in Loudon?
That need it.
Absolutely. How many people can we get off welfare by giving them workforce training with that money?
Indeed.
How much good can you do by allowing small businesses to participate in a gaming industry that they've legalized and yet at the same time take those revenues to do good with it? That's our job. But they have been so far,
So
some of them
why are
unwilling
some of
to do
them so intent on kicking the? We've been here my whole life, as that's
the
said
accent proves it.
several times. Our business and every other business that I'm aware of was built under the free market system, capitalism. Nobody ever gave us a monopoly on a. Why are some of these people that have been voted by citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia more welcoming to people from out of state?
More welcoming to marijuana, more welcoming to outside casino interest. I mean, it's the $100 million question right now, and I don't think I have an adequate answer because it seems like to me that any resistance or dislike of skill game is an emotional one. For the legislator that says, I'm going to kill that. I don't like that. It's scuzzy. It's slimy. Whatever they've used. It seems to be the lowest form of discourse in politics sometimes. Saying stuff that's just not true. Like home cooking. Judge got it wrong.
Which is disrespectful.
Yeah, and stuff that really I have not seen to this measure or degree before in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Hope to never see it again. But that almost makes me want to fight more. And I think every small business, you, LaVar, you, Hermie, that's what, impassions and emboldens us to not give up. Because ultimately, that place over there likes revenue. And it doesn't have many more places it can print money. I mean, you're getting into the last bit of things where we can generate revenue. Marijuana legalization, gambling, gaming. I mean, those are different things. Even the casinos, LaVar, aren't coming online for another couple of years.
Sure.
So we're not even getting that revenue right now, where this revenue is right here, right now. I have no idea totally why they're behind it. I would love it if someone would just come up and talk to me honestly and openly of why we're having this discussion even at all. But they know how passionate I am about it. I can't vote on it. Now, ethically, I will not vote for or against because I have a client who's involved and would benefit from it. But tell me why you got a no vote. And I haven't gotten an answer yet.
And ultimately, all we want at the end is a fair and equitable tax and regulation system for everybody. Everybody can play on this ball field and stay in their lane and do it constructively.
I think sometimes, so I have a story to go with this point, okay? I remember one time one of my teammates was
hurry up because we got to get into my stellar high school football career.
I love it. We got to talk about that. So I had a teammate tell me one time, you ever notice geese fly in a V formation when they're flying? And I was like, yeah, I did. I noticed that. He's like, all right. You notice after a certain point in time, the lead geese moves back, another one takes over. It's like, okay, I get that. He's like, you know the reasoning behind why geese fly in that formation and it's effective for them. I said, oh, it's because of the wind resistance and this, that, and the other. He says, just how they fly. There doesn't have to be a real explanation as to why this formation works for them. It works. And I kind of taken that approach. I don't want to look at where we're at right now as it being adversarial. I want to look at it from the standpoint of saying they just need to understand sometimes the formation is the formation because it's the formation. You don't have to be upset about it or be, adversarial about it because you don't understand it. Just take a step back and take a little bit of time to understand it. And I think a lot of times the reason why people have hard stances towards things is, one, if I don't understand it, that means I'm being left out, or I don't feel adequate in this moment. I don't feel like my value is what it's supposed to be. Vote no. And sometimes it's just as simple as that. I don't think that a lot of times, of course, we can look at agendas. We can look at what people have to lose or what people have to gain by having control over something. But sometimes it just really comes down to, I am here and I have this title so that I can make decisions as it applies to the greater whole. And if I'm not aware of this to the level of Hermie or to the level of Bill, I feel like somebody didn't educate me on it. They left me out on this. I don't understand it. I don't want to do it. So for me, I felt like me getting involved, I want to bring more of a understanding, an explanation of sorts where people should challenge themselves to see the good in it. See yourself in it. What if it was your daughter's business? What if it's your son's business? What if it's your business? And taking a more positive stance on it and understanding it from not I heard emotional. A lot of times when emotions, because a lot of people are very, very wired to be passively aggressive. I can be passive until I get an opening to be aggressive. I don't necessarily want to be aggressive because aggressive isn't received the right way. But if I'm passive the whole way, then I can try to get to where I want to be. And if I need to be aggressive, then I'll be aggressive. And I think a lot of people approach things that way. If you take away that sense of we're going against each other and we find a common ground, which what is that common ground? I don't know. But I think as long as there are conversations that are ensuing as to where that common ground exists, then I think that it will ultimately open people's eyes and their ears to hear these small business owners say what they're saying. We can come to conclusions like, wow, well, I never really thought to look at it that way. It's just simple. And maybe I just needed to take a moment in time to realize that it's just that simple. So now we need to figure out, instead of one versus the other, how do we make it work? Like, if this is your agenda, how do you make your agenda work with this agenda? You don't have to delete one to have the other. And I think a lot of times, and I try not to get into politics too deep, but I think a lot of times once you get really ingrained into how political culture works, it really becomes a keeping score. What side wins? What side loses? What side loses? Who had the right agenda? Who didn't have the right agenda? And I think sometimes you just got to take a step back and say, this is simple. So let's go back to square one. Let's go to start and let's work from start. And I think that for me has been what's been most important for me in all of this.
LaVar Arrington for governor, 2026.
Oh,
Here we go.
Move back to the Commonwealth. Come on. But you're exactly right, and there's a lot of space. This
There
is
is.
not some tight industry where there's only a few players that can fit in it. We're talking about a very vast state, different makeup. We've got rural, we've got urban, we've got suburban. I think there's something for everybody, and I think everybody should be able to participate, whether they want to play them or whether they want to run them and operate them. And I think you can't just pick winners and losers like that because then it's too obvious. Let's just let it go. Let's let it roll. These are very good and different things. People like to play them. I am now a hero at my local convenience store when I walk in there because the farmers I know and the guys I know that go in there were thrilled when those games were turned back on and thanked me for it and knew that we had done it, Hermie. And so, because I get a lot of press.
All the little people that makes me
I'm
feel
famous
good.
in Roanoke, you know that, right?
Uh-oh.
Hey, did you shave today?
No, sir.
Look at LaVar. By the way,
Perfect face for radio.
first time with the cameras on us. I mean, I'm in a suit. Pulled the tie off like a little.
Yeah, that's all right.
Let's be
looking
honest, you're in a
fly.
suit because you have to be. LaVar's got a sport jacket on because he thinks you're important.
You look like you're about
And
to
I'm
pump
casual
gas.
because I'm not working.
And sometimes the explanations are just as simple as that. I have
There you
on
go.
a jacket because, well, I thought that you guys were both important. Now that I'm realizing that it isn't really that, I mean, I might take my jacket
out,
off.
take it
you
off.
know?
No. Come on. We're like the bookends of sweetness.
Yeah.
And then we've got the guy out here that's shoveling his driveway.
NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Phew. Christmas is finally behind us, but are you dreading those credit card bills headed your way? Well, here's a pro tip. Don't get stuck making minimum payments in the new year. SaveWithConrad.com can help you get rid of your credit card debt just like that. Oh, and we're going to get you the best deal on a mortgage you've ever had. But how's this for starters? No payments until March. You don't need money out of your pocket or perfect credit, so find out how much money you can save for free right now at SaveWithConrad.com.
Hi, folks. This is Hermie Sadler. Thanks for listening to our all-new podcast, Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I hope you are enjoying the show as much as Senator Stanley and I enjoy bringing it to you. Whether you're a family traveling together or a truck driver hauling freight up and down the highway, I hope you will take the time to visit one of our Sadler Travel Plaza locations in Virginia and North Carolina. Sadler Travel Plaza locations are licensed dealer locations for Pilot Travel Centers. And we also carry Shell Motiva petroleum products for our four-wheel friends. We pride ourselves on providing one-stop shopping for service, food, and entertainment. Our food options include Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Quiznos, Dairy Queen, Hermie Sadler's Faux Show Bar and Grill, Victory Lane Restaurant, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Dunkin' Donuts, and much, much more. Our locations include Sadler Travel Plaza in South Hill, located off I-85 at exit 12. The Sadler Travel Plaza of Emporia, which is conveniently located on exit 11B off I-95, and Sadler Travel Plaza on Highway 58 in Suffolk. We also have our North Carolina location, Sadler Travel Plaza in Dunn, North Carolina, that's exit 75 off I-95. We appreciate all of our customers. And Bill and I appreciate you listening to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic. Hey, look, we want to switch and talk about some football and some sportscasting, but before we do, I want to remind everybody that Leaning Right and Turning Left is powered by Pace-O-Matic, who reminds you to follow the show on social media at Sadler Senator and to make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode as we discuss hot topics in the Virginia General Assembly and, of course, racing, and now, Senator Stanley, football.
Wow,
It's
what
about
an
time.
amazing read
So
that
you,
was.
were you? I'm interested. You played football, high school football.
Let me tell you something, Hall.
Well, I raced cars
Let's hear your story. I bet it's more
Did it
compelling
involve
than
a
mine.
lawyer?
on video games.
Did you need
I played
lawyer?
a game called Turbo. I don't know if you guys remember it.
yeah,
It was
I
a part of ColecoVision.
Yes.
It had the pedal and everything. I
Yes.
was really good at it.
That was
Is
a
that the
great
game I whipped you on at Dave & Buster's that night?
See, I'm telling you right now, when we were doing videotaping for the lawsuit, we decided to go to Dave & Buster's, do an investigation.
Show
and
and
it
tell.
and it was called Hermie Goes to Dave & Buster's. And it was really fun because he was like a little kid, and he got in there, and he won in the claw
won an
game.
Ernie doll for
He-
my daughter.
He pulled out an Ernie doll, and you would have thought he won the Daytona 500. He's like, with the Ernie doll. So then we get to, he wants to race this Hot Wheels kind of thing. I said, sure. He was like, come on, kid, get up here. Let me show you something. I beat him. I beat him. Put him in the wall.
I let him beat me.
Put him in the fence.
Okay, that's fair.
Try to give a man some confidence.
I understand.
You can tell he's lacking it.
You know what?
I have that videotape to prove it, and it's on a loop, which I keep in my room every
Love
night to
Love it.
demonstrate.
Guess what's the first video he wanted to show the judge in the courtroom?
Absolutely.
That one.
That one.
Yes.
Like it had anything to do with our lawsuit.
But see, that proves that skill works, you know? So I was very skillful at that video
You were
game.
very
Probably not
skillful.
really driving, but it was good.
Well,
It was good. Well, let's talk about now. Look,
Yeah.
LaVar, you're from Pittsburgh,
I am.
which is Steel Town, Title
Steel.
Town.
That's
It's
right.
It is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, football is a way of life. It's Pennsylvania football. It is a way of life. I mean, obviously you're built for it. What made you just go, hey, I want to play football? How'd you do it?
Oh, wow. I come from a football family. So all my uncles, mom's side and dad's side, went to the same high school, Westinghouse High in Pittsburgh, PA. A legendary football program. Pete Imperio was the coach back then, and they were winning state titles hand and fist. I grew up a part of the culture. I think the first time I ever ran a touchdown, my family thought I was lost. The whole family's looking around, looking through the community and everywhere, looking for me. I had wandered off. I had to have been about maybe 5 or 6 years old, and they go and run to the family. My grandmother was a security, one of the security women for the school, and they came and got her and said, he's down there. And they looked down there. I had a football. Football was almost as big as I am, and I was running touchdowns. That's like the story of, me getting acclimated. The first success I had playing the game was halftime. I'm running touchdowns on the football field, not being kidnapped or wandering off doing something, being mischievous. I wanted to be on that field. And that was kind of the start for me as I got a little older, not much older. I started playing football at 8, 9 years old. And I know a lot of people don't believe that you should play early on. It is what it is in terms of where you fall on that thought process. But for me, it was really just being out there and being able to do something that my family loved. And so it just grew from there. I was a multi-sport player. I played basketball. I actually ended up being more recruited and better as a basketball player. And I ran track. I ran the 100 meters. I ran the 200 meters, and I long jumped. And so I think that as I moved into older years, hitting into high school and different things like that, for me, it truly was. It just was an honor to be able to compete at the level that I did, because it afforded me the opportunity to meet people that I would have never met before. Right. As I was growing up, when I work out, I meet Dwight White, who was one of the famed Steel Curtain football members. It was L.C. Greenwood. It was Mean Joe Green. It was L.C. Greenwood. I said L.C. Greenwood, but Dwight White was one of the guys that was on that front, and he lived in my community. And so when I would be running around and jogging, he would talk to me, and I would get opportunities to talk to him and learn from him while I was, going through the ranks. I remember one time he brought me into his house and wanted to talk to me about, what I was thinking, what direction I was going in. And I'm like a freshman in high school, and he had one of his Super Bowl rings out on his bar in his man cave, and I could fit his Super Bowl ring on my ring finger and my pinky finger. And it was like one of those Mufasa Simba moments. Like, it was like, man, these are some really, really big footprints to fill. I want to be as good as he was at one point in time. And I realized that I wasn't even as big as he was. Like, two of my fingers was one of his fingers. And it created a mindset for me to just want to be great. Every time I met somebody who had a Hall of Fame or Super Bowl ring, I put it on. I made them give me their ring to put on, because I wanted to get used to feeling what that felt like to achieve that, at least the end result of it. Never won a Super Bowl and won't go into the NFL Hall of Fame. But what I will say is that it drove me to want to be the best that I could be. And that's kind of the story of it is that when people weren't working, I was working. I was up early in the morning working out. I was up, after school when people were going straight home or going to do other things. I was working, always was working, and it paid off. Hard work generally. I always say, no matter what it is, if you are willing to put in the time and the effort and the commitment to the hard work that goes into developing, here we go, the skill of it, then you should not feel bad about the results that you get when you pull out of it. The games were easy for me. They were fun for me because I went through hell. I visited hell before I ever got to a game. And that was a mindset. I'm a military kid. I'm a wounded warrior military kid. So my father lost both a leg and an ankle, a foot. So he has no feet. My dad has never run a day in my life with me. And lo and behold, you have a kid, you raise three young men, fine young men, and one of them is big and is probably as athletic as you'd ever see. And I always said that's something that probably was given to me as a gift because of what my father did and his sacrifice for our country. So for me, it's just always been balls to the wall, so to speak, in terms of how I approach things. And it's always been based upon what's right. I wasn't trying to find anything to hide it or, use enhancing drugs or anything like that. It was always put in the time, put in the work, and what you get out of it is going to be ultimately what you're deserving of.
So as you were going through the ranks in your high school days, and when did you start getting recruited?
8th grade.
Was it how many schools recruited you, and was it ever anybody else other than Penn State in the picture?
Absolutely.
Yeah, why not Pitt?
I did like Pitt. I thought about staying at home. Johnny Majors was still the coach at Pitt at the time. Miami and Florida State were my first two picks just because I was a big fan of Ray Lewis and a big fan of Derek Brooks. And so I was looking at those schools. But ultimately, as I got a little older, I wanted to stay closer to home because my community, obviously, I wanted my community to be a part of my career. I didn't want it to be where they could only come to so many games. At least if we had home games, I knew at this many games, my family would be able to, the extended family, be able to come. So I looked at Pitt. It didn't work out for one reason or another. I went there on an unofficial visit, and they told me that Johnny Majors wasn't available that day. But if I came back and they scheduled it for another week, I was like, we're not here for that. We just wanted to just come look at the campus, check it out. I do the same thing at Penn State. Joe Paterno's in D.C. with the president, with Bush, the first one, and they charter him a private jet to get back into State College just to come say hello to me and my family before we left. I committed. That next weekend I committed to going to Penn State and never turned back on my commitment to it. But I think it's one of the greatest decisions I ever made because I wanted to represent my state. And that pride, the pride of where I've represented. So I represent the DMV. I represent, Pennsylvania. I represent the district. I represent Maryland. I represent Virginia. Those places mean the world to me. And so that representation, when I had the opportunity to choose Penn State and Penn State representing all of Pennsylvania, not just the western side of it from where I was from in Pittsburgh, but the entirety of the state, it just, that was a pretty intense feeling knowing that that's what I was representing and that was what I was embarking upon when I went to school there.
And that's just so amazing because, Penn State, what I remember, everybody remembers the LaVar leap.
Yeah.
I mean, you anticipated the count, sailed over your own players, your fellow teammates, and grabbed a guy in
Illinois.
Illinois.
Yeah.
And grabs the running back and tackles him, stuffs him. It was like,
it was fourth and inches.
Fourth and inches.
They were driving. I'll say it wasn't. It was kind of uneventful. We were shutting them out. This was their best drive of the game that took place, and it was 4th and inches. But it just goes back to the whole conversation of skill, preparation, meeting, obviously, opportunity. And I was one of the type of guys, I paid attention to every little detail, minute detail when I studied film. So I understood mannerisms, I understood tendencies. Big Ten football, if it's a short down, if it's a short yardage situation, for that game in particular, I'll never forget when they broke, because some teams don't huddle, but Illinois huddled under Ron Turner. They huddled, and whenever they would come out and go on first sound, and it was a run, they would run out of the huddle. And if they ran out of the huddle and got up onto the ball quickly, you knew it was going to be a first sound play. And so it's that's the way it played out. It was a short yardage down. You knew that they weren't going to try to play action it or try to
And they
do
messed
something
up
different.
and ran out the huddle.
They ran out the huddle. They ran out of the huddle. They got up to the line of scrimmage. They jumped down into their stances, and I was timing it. At that point in time, now I'm timing it, which, keep in mind, I had this same pattern of studying and development of studying when I was in high school. So I was leaping over people doing the same exact thing in high school.
Same thing I did, Bill.
Yeah, right.
really?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, it's just one of those things when you have the confidence that Hermie and myself bring to the table.
Hermie and myself.
Yeah,
us.
But you're never going to be afraid of the moment. I mean, if you think about it, that's a nationally televised game.
Oh, yeah.
On it's either Thanksgiving or Halloween. I think it's Halloween. It was Halloween. And you're talking about 100,000 people in the stadium and millions of people watching it.
Yeah.
And in the moment, you could look like a horse's ass, or you could look like the guy who had a play named after him when he made the play. So never allow for the moment to be too big for what it is that you believe you're capable of.
There's a great
doing.
lesson in that, and quite frankly, I'm going to tell you, in my mind, just as when Michael Jordan took off from the foul line, which is now the iconic photo of him in for the dunk, that in college football, idolatry and everything that you remember about college football, what you did in that picture, and I think it was on Sports Illustrated or something, wasn't it?
It was.
And I mean, the dominant and the look on your face, the intensity, and quite frankly, you can tell that guy knows he's in trouble.
See, I thought
And
that you were going
that
to
is
tell me
iconic.
you ended up jumping from the free throw line to go dunk out at some point in time in your life.
Well, I did do that,
Can't
but
even get the net.
No, I did
Can't even get the
no,
net.
No, that's untrue. I did do that. It was my my 5-year-old's one of
Okay,
those play school
okay.
nets, and you better. I mean, I was raining it down on.
And
his head.
there is nothing wrong with you doing it on a Nerf hoop.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with you doing that.
Absolutely.
Because it's all about the understanding of what your capabilities are.
And
right?
and is it bad that you say in your face to say a 5
no,
or 6
to a
year old?
5-year-old, no.
If
no.
it's your son, I think it's okay, right?
I think that even if it was your son's friend, if it was your nephew, even if it was your niece, because there are valuable lessons in you dunking on them and saying in your face to them as well. They had to learn from that as well.
and I'm moving on to the Dikembe Mutombo.
I mean,
I do
there's
that to Hermie.
there's value there. I would love
Not
to
in
see you
my
guys
house.
play one-on-one on a Nerf hoop. by the
You don't
way.
want to see that.
Dude,
I think that's something that we might
I
have
will
to set up.
abuse that man.
That would be something we can do.
I think we got to do a challenge of go-karting,
Yes.
Nerf basketball, skill games. We have to do a whole bunch of things, and it's like going to be the wide world of sports challenge between
Challenge
you two.
Hermie.
I've
Yes.
lost a little bit of my vertical,
Yes.
but I can still get it done. Hey,
So you went from what, 4 inches to 3.5, 3?
I'm asking. I guess
What's
the
this
question.
conversation about right now, guys?
Yeah,
I
no
don't
kidding.
know.
You get a little personal. It's cold
I don't know.
outside.
I feel like
It's cold outside.
I feel like you guys took a hard left.
Well, what
All right, there we go.
Oh,
No, no, I'm still
It's
leaning
cold
right.
While
outside.
sitting while leaning right.
I'm
You
still
know, I
leaning
don't know.
right.
All right.
Hey, I
all
want
right.
to go to the next level, NFL, but I'm curious to get your thoughts as a college football fan myself. This transfer portal
Yes,
has really changed
it's changed things.
the game. Is the kids are different, the coaches are different. A lot of
The culture
coaches
is
that I
different.
knew are getting out and moving, and I'm just curious your overall thoughts on the transfer portal and how it's affected college football.
Well, it's turned college football into free agency now. It's going to be very difficult to build sustainable programs with the transfer portal the way that it is now, because it could go, you could lose a kid to the highest bidder still while they're in college. They could be upset in the moment and decide to go look for greener pastures elsewhere. It's interesting because coaches have always been able to do this. Players have it. Players would have penalties if they transferred. Mm-hmm. So now with the NIL, naming, image, likeness situation that's out there where players can now be monetized through companies and businesses, it really, really sets the stage for colleges really having to reevaluate how they're approaching servicing their student athletes, because it's now almost going to become obsolete to call a kid a student athlete and that's it. If you stay inundated with that, you are going to lose kids to the transfer portal because they're going to receive better opportunities elsewhere. Whereas those schools that figure out how to navigate and deal with the changing climate of where college football or college sports in general as a whole, where it's going, those are going to be the institutions that seemingly will benefit from, how they structure what they're doing. Be a part of the solution. If you're not a part of the solution, you're going to be a part of the problem. And if you're a part of the problem, you'll start to see mass exoduses of players going into the portal to go other places. So it's definitely an added challenge to being able to build a program and have extended success.
Didn't college athletics in general, though, kind of start down this path with the one and done, allowing basketball players to leave after one? I mean, you see so many of it now.
Yep.
And of course, that should be their right. They should have a right to make a living. But it's the student athlete part, I think, which you hit the nail on the head, because what you're trying to do is provide them with an education as well, because of all the people that play athletics in college, a very small percentage, maybe 2%, make it to the pro levels like you did, right?
Yes.
And so what I see is I see a natural progression, though, to maybe some of the more dominant universities with the ability to pay the athlete, because they may be in a larger TV market. Yep. But to see what Deion Sanders did with the number one parade All-American, to bring them to the historically black college and university school, that Jackson State, which he coaches, that was amazing too. So I have some hope there.
There is the idea that someone like Deion Sanders has the connections to the major sponsor dollars, like a Ford or, I don't know, name a
Subway.
There you go, something to that effect, right? So when you have that type of outlet and that type of database, Rolodex, Deion can do that. You got to be careful to look at it from the standpoint of every school can't execute that. But I will say this, I think one thing that you got to take a look at is the amount of money that's being generated in the pro ranks and at the college ranks. Some of that money is going to need at some point to really go back into the communities, and you're talking about those schools in Loudoun County. Some of this money is going to have to go into educating families, the kids and the parents. Like, for what it's worth, I would rather want to learn about NFTs or naming, image, and likeness and proper branding and how do I manage my social media and build a brand versus European history. That's just for me. Like, I don't really need, for me, to look at the French and Indian War and say, okay, this war took place. This is a part of history. I get that. People have to be more prepared to have success in their lives. If I taught you all of these different things in grammar school and in middle school and high school, and those things don't translate to what you're going to experience when you go into the workforce of college, then why are we so shocked and surprised when these athletes are losing all of their money? And we pay attention to pro basketball and football players generally, because those are the ones that are really front and center in the media, but it's in all categories, right? We could probably name off a ton of guys that drove broke in desolate situations, just like the guys that played football. And it's just because these guys haven't been prepared well enough. And then we tend to say, okay, well, let's send them to a technical school in high school, right? Let's send them to a poly. They're not very good academically, so let's send them to a trades school of some sort. But in reality, education has got to evolve in terms of the preparation of these kids, because I look at ultimately, if you can convince these kids to learn these types of skills, whether the percentages are against them or not to make it, they're still prepared to be able to do things in the business world. Everything that I've learned being in the pros and making a ton of money has translated into how I look at what I do in my business life. So to educate them, even if they don't make it, they're still prepared to be able to say, okay, if I go get a job here, I'm not looking at it as I got to be the best player, and if I'm the best player, then I get all of this. I can look at it and say, okay, I started off as a special teams player. I started off on JV. But if I start working really hard, if I carry the helmet to the guy that I'm trying to beat out, and I'm watching film with him and I'm in the weight room with him, then now I'm progressing myself. Well, if I'm learning the same way in the classroom about the business of branding, the business of sport and what that looks like. And
Financial literacy.
Financial literacy. Now I'm able to educate my mom and dad on this.
Right.
And now with NIL being the way that it is, your mom and dad can find ways to monetize themselves while you're even still in high school. So there's a benefit to creating that educational proponent or component to what curriculum represents these days, instead of giving people things that they're not necessarily interested in. So that's something.
I mean,
to
are
me.
you telling sports athletes or colleges that this needs to be a component of it? Because
It certainly
sounds
does.
great to me.
It certainly does.
I mean, why don't you get out there and do that? I mean, I'm buying.
It certainly needs to be a part of what, because again, you are your own enterprise. And think about our kids. I don't need for my kids to be as successful as I was playing the game, but I also need them to understand they can be as successful, if not more successful than me, because of the technology that's at their fingertips. They just need to know how to use it and be responsible and safe about doing it. That's impactful education, if you ask me.
And tell them not to let the friend of their aunt handle their money,
Well,
because
there
that's
you
the
go.
dude that always spends it all and then they're poor.
Or they better be getting educated right along with you,
Right.
and you guys be on the same page. I mean, LeBron James and them showed a model that I mean, all of those are his childhood friends. And you can't be a part-timer on wanting to be great at what you do. If you're looking at LeBron saying, LeBron, you be great, and I'm going to be here to help you work with your money and spend your money, then that's the wrong approach. If you're saying I'm going to be as great as LeBron is at handling his money, and that's reciprocated, then there's a difference, because then now you can grow and you can build from that and give people the opportunities. I mean, that's why I have the guys here that I believe in giving guys opportunities that show that they're willing to put that time, that effort, and that energy into being great. Don't just be good. Be great, even if you're not looked at. And this is something that goes to the thought of the small business, right? I look at small business owners and operators and I say, if I'm looking at people that are striving to be great, you'll see a product that rivals that of the behemoths, and even though they don't get the exposure or maybe the end result, the residuals of it, they're still putting in what it takes to be great, and something comes from that, and there's something to be said about that.
We need some guys.
gotta get some
He's
guys.
got guys.
Got guys.
I mean, I got a guy.
Some cool guys.
You got to
I think
have
plural.
guys.
Guys, plural.
Yeah, you got to have a team.
He's gonna teach us how to get some
Yeah,
guys.
you got to have a team.
Well, right now I'm going to teach you how to thank a
NASCAR,
sponsor.
come on. Show me how to thank a sponsor.
Lonely sport. There's only
wanna-
one man in the car.
We want to talk about broadcasting.
Yes.
Before we wrap up the show.
Well,
But
I want to talk Washington Redskins too, because he was
Okay.
my hero.
All right, okay.
right now, I want to remind you this podcast is powered by Pace-O-Matic. Don't forget the subscribe button wherever you listen to your podcast, and be sure to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Then listen each week as we discuss a wide range of topics about small business, law, and government, plus our biggest love, auto racing, and the Smart Auto Series, sponsored by Pace-O-Matic. Once again, we thank our friends at Pace-O-Matic for powering the show and look forward to bringing it to you each week.
Time to tell you about something I'm super passionate about: protecting your family. Yes, this is a life insurance ad for GoliathLife.com, but to me, this is really about peace of mind. Think about insurance for a second. We all get medical and auto insurance, yet we never even know if we're going to have a need for it. Let me let you in on a little secret. You need life insurance. We're all going to die. Now, as you let that reality sink in, think about what would happen if your family stopped having your income tomorrow. If you don't have a plan for that, you need to visit GoliathLife.com. And I mean right now. And just personally, I've lost 2 friends in their 40s this past year and a half, and I don't even want to think about what their families would be going through had they not had life insurance. If you don't have it, get it. Protect your family. And I suggest you go to GoliathLife.com because they've made the process of getting affordable life insurance super easy. Goliath Life streamlines the life insurance process by allowing you to get quotes for more than 20 carriers within minutes. And you'll pick your terms and payments to fit your budget. You pick your price, you start the online application immediately, and even schedule the medical exam to come to you. And I've done it. They sent someone to my office. I skipped the phone calls, the paperwork, and the crazy invasive conversations. Goliath Life makes buying life insurance simple. There's no hidden fees, no upsells, no hassle, hell, not even a phone call. Goliath Life is life insurance in your hands on your time. Get multiple quick quotes right now from the comfort of your own home and begin your application in a few easy clicks right now at GoliathLife.com.
Hey, so I know Bill's going to ask you about the Washington football team, but were you disappointed that you didn't get drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, or did that ever cross your mind?
Ooh, I would have been a Hall of Famer if I went to the Steelers.
Now, why you say that?
Because the Redskins suck.
I would have been.
Mr. Stanley.
They did.
I mean,
That's why they got the second pick in the draft.
They did. They got the second and third pick.
Yeah, that's right.
I probably would have been a Hall of Famer just because of the mentality of the way I played. I would have been utilized correctly in Pittsburgh. It's just.
I only asked that because you, in your talks on this whole show today about your high school and your college, your being at home and your family situation, your dad wanting them to play, that would have been the perfect. Oh, and I say perfect. That would have been logistically speaking.
If Washington would have used me correctly, that would have been any place I would have went to would have been the perfect situation had I been used correctly. I was put in position to be a stack linebacker, which is the linebacker that stands on the line of scrimmage and stands over top of the extra offensive lineman, which is back then the tight end. And my job was to create an edge on the defense side of the ball with the tight end. So I never did that in my career. I was more of like a hybrid safety. I played behind the middle backer in college. The middle backer was in there taking on all the traffic and the melees, and I would read and run. If I had went to Pittsburgh, I would have probably been aligned on the line of scrimmage, and I would have been blitzing every single play. Every once in a while I would have dropped, but for the most part, like what T.J. Watt is doing, what Jason Gilden, Joey Porter, countless, my favorite player of all time, Greg Lloyd, Kevin Green, those guys, they were just blitzing. And you understand the details of what you have to do within being a blitz linebacker. But for me, I mean, I think I would have had a ton of success if I had played in that 3-4 Pittsburgh defense.
And you were, you reminded me of Wilbur Marshall.
I love Wilbur Marshall.
If you'd had the ability to be kind of that freelancer like Wilbur was.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was that in the end, remember, you went through a bunch of coaches.
In the end,
it was Joe Gibbs, though.
At one point in time, I had more head coaches than I did years in the league in Washington.
That's amazing. Now, who drafted you?
North Turner was the head coach when I came in. Dan had just taken over the team as the owner. They had Champ Bailey and John Jansen from a previous draft that were already there. Darrell Green was there. My rookie year, they brought in Deion Sanders. They brought in Mark Carrier. They brought in, We had Albert Connell, we had Irving Fryer, we had Michael Westbrook, we had Stephen Davis in the backfield, we had Skip Hicks, we had Brad Johnson as our starting quarterback.
All-stars.
They brought in Jeff George as our backup.
Right.
So we got Jeff George as our backup quarterback. Our team was loaded. Our team was loaded. You have a DB room with Darryl Green, Deion Sanders, and Champ Bailey.
So why
all
didn't it
three
work?
Hall of Famers.
Tell me why it didn't work.
Culture. You were talking about this earlier, about how there's so much fighting and bickering. How can it work if everybody's too busy doing their own thing, having their own thing? And that culture started from the top. There was a culture of arrogance that came. And for me, I was so young, I didn't get it, so I kind of subscribed to it. I mean, I was never an arrogant person, but I was seemingly someone who anticipated and expected us to win and be better because that was how we moved around. We're better. You know, I'm better than you, you know. But it just never was a culture that was conducive to having success. And I said that all along after I started understanding from more of an adult standpoint as to why things weren't coming together. Like, how do you not win with that group? We had Bruce Smith on the defensive line. We had Big Daddy Wilkinson, Dan Wilkinson on the inside. We had Dana Stubblefield. We had Marco Coleman. I mean, we had Kennard Lang on that defensive front. We had Indy Kalu. These are all guys that went on.
I don't even think I could have started on that defense as good as I was.
I tell you what, the team was loaded.
You couldn't carry the jock.
That team was loaded.
You couldn't.
I think Hermie
That's a lot
could have
of
got
jock.
in there and got out there.
Got in there.
He would have
y'all just
got
don't know.
got murdered. But
I got 4 years of eligibility left.
You ever seen the movie Rudy?
yeah, it would have been more
Hermie,
like
Hermie.
it wouldn't have been like Rudy. It'd have been more like Lucas. You remember Lucas when he got pummeled at the end?
Yeah,
and,
he had
and
the glasses on.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
I like
yeah,
it.
it'd have been more like that.
Last 2 years, you know, and again, I've been a Redskin fan. And I can't stop calling them the Redskins because
Okay.
I was growing up that way. But and I don't mean to offend people. I know how that might have that effect, and that's why we've changed the name.
Which is strange because even though there's a name change, what do I reference myself as? I haven't played for the name change team.
Yeah. No, and
So
that's it.
I mean whether it's seemingly I was able to be a professional and play in a professional game as a Washington Redskin. Like that's what I was.
Right.
I mean so I can't change my history based off of it, you know. And moving forward, I always represent it and respect it by saying it's the Washington football team.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't play for the Washington football team. I played for the Washington Redskins.
Now, the last 2 years, as a Redskin fan, they bring back Coach
Yep.
Joe Gibbs.
Yeah.
He's in
You're not going
NASCAR.
to like what I have to say about
no,
Joe,
but so our expectations go up again because you know you're listing a roster, and then you had Williams, right?
Greg Williams.
Greg Williams, he's the guy. He's the bounty game.
Yeah,
he's the
bounty
guy that went
gate.
down to New Orleans, the defense coordinator, and put a bounty on people's heads. Paid bounties to defensive players if they got sacked or took them out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So you got what you'd think at the time. Remember, he was known to be a defensive coordinator.
Guru.
Genius,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then you have Joe coming back in because Snyder has brought him back in, and it still doesn't work. And quite frankly, if I remember correctly, you guys were having some disputes. They weren't using you right.
Well,
things were going south.
What went south was my contract, and I didn't have anything to do with that.
Joe Gibbs was a GM too, wasn't he?
Well, no, he wasn't. Who was the GM at that? Vinny Serrato was still
Serrato.
the GM at the time. But it just was things weren't handled properly, and instead of correcting it, they made it an all-out attack on my character. And instead of just correcting the contract, like for me, it's like, okay, it's one signing bonus. I redid my contract in the last minute of doing it for the sake of the team because Champ wasn't going to restructure. Champ was leaving, and
Going to the Broncos.
Well, he was leaving. He was getting the hell out of Dodge, so to speak, during that time. So he didn't want to restructure, and they had to restructure one of the bigger contracts. I had a bigger contract because back then rookie contracts were still big contracts. So they had to restructure somebody. And for me I offered it to help the team, and then offering to do so, the bonus that wasn't in the contract, this is getting into the minutia of it, but the contract was missing a bonus, and that bonus took my earning average down. If you look at it with a sensible eye, you knew there was something wrong. There's no reason for me to do a deal in my rookie deal to take my earning capacity down literally over 60%. And so
that's understandable. I mean, you're having great seasons.
I didn't even want any drama from it, but the NFLPA saw it, so they get involved, and now they're arbitrating against the team. I don't want anything to do with it. My agent gets in trouble. It's all kinds of messiness, and it was like Dan Snyder pinpointed me as the problem. And it's like, why would I be the problem? And then they brought in Joe Gibbs, and Joe and Greg seemingly became like a henchman to phase me out of being what I represented to Washington and to the team. So
is that right?
I don't really have fond memories of Joe Gibbs. I'm not a Joe Gibbs fan. I'm not a Greg Williams fan. I'm not a fan of that group. My favorite coach. My top 1-2 coach in the league was number one would easily be Marty Schottenheimer. If they had kept Marty in place that second year instead of the one and done season, because he was changing the culture that was there and that was really, really beginning to take hold and develop there, I think that the team would have been going into that second season. We would have been a hard-nosed group that would have achieved at a much higher success rate than what it had been. But they got rid of him because they were uncomfortable with the way they felt having him around. And then Steve Spurrier, I thought the old ball coach was I thought he was an awesome guy. We just didn't have enough professionals. Again, goes back to that culture. We didn't have a culture that was conducive to success, so a lot of guys weren't very professional in the way that Steve allowed us to operate. You know, you had guys going out to nightclubs and strip clubs the night before games. They're showing up the day of the game smelling like, liquor and stuff like that, or they're in the parking lot looking a certain type of way, smelling a certain type of way before we're about to play games, and we messed over on that. Coach Spurrier gave us the opportunity to kind of run the team the way that we wanted to run the team, and we didn't pay dividends on that.
Lost discipline and focus, I guess,
or never had it.
Well, sorry. So, look, you were one of my favorite players.
Well, thank you.
Everybody's favorite player. We hated that we weren't winning because that the culture of the fan was that the Redskins should win every year. When Dan Snyder took over, it became unstable.
Yeah,
you were that stability. Then all of a sudden, this happens, and I'll end this on the football note so we can talk about broadcasting. But you leave.
Yeah,
you go to the Giants.
I made 5 games. I had a cup of coffee there, and it didn't even get cold. The cup of coffee was still half full, and it was still hot when I left the Giants. So,
did you go to the Giants because of the Redskins?
Absolutely.
Just to say, I'm going to stick it
I
up
got
here.
one win against Washington before I was done playing ball.
And that was probably...
And I knocked Clinton Portis' shoulder to probably his waistline at one point in time during the course of that game. And to get out of the game with a win and to get out of the game thumping Clinton in that game, to the point of where he had to run off the field like it looked like he, like I had broke it.
Oh, I remember.
That was – and listen, I love Clinton and I love my teammates, but in the heat of that game, I just wanted to impact the game in a way where it was memorable to me because I knew this was it. Like, I didn't love the game anymore. Right. Washington had stole my love of the game away. So it was more of a business decision when I went to New York, and I just wanted to have the opportunity to play against Washington twice a year before I got up out of there.
We knew it.
Yeah,
knew it.
Oh, I did a full download with Coach Coughlin and Coach Gilbright and those guys before we played. It was funny because they tried to create this narrative that I was dumb, like I couldn't learn the playbook and different things like that. I was like, all right, I went to Pro Bowls I went to 3 Pro Bowls under 3 different coordinators. So it's fine. You want whatever you want to try to put out there. I'll tell you this much: we went over the offensive playbook. And we went over the defensive playbook leading into that week, and everything that I had laid out to them game plan wise, and said, here's what we need to do. Here are the cadences. Here are the tendencies. Here's what, this is what they like to check into, this, that, and the other. It all was there. And we had a pretty good day. We had a pretty good day against Washington.
Hermie, I can die a
Meadowlands.
happy man now. I have gotten asked my hero all about Washington football.
Well,
the good,
that's
the
not
bad,
all
and the
about.
ugly.
That's not all about Washington. That's just LaVar's all about.
Sure.
At least that part of it, because there were a lot of great moments in time early on when, like I said, I did retire Troy Aikman from the game.
Yep.
I did have an interception that changed our season around, where we went 0-5, and then after we beat Carolina, we ran off 5 straight. There were some good moments, some really, really good moments. I didn't become the face of the franchise because I was drafted number 2 overall. I became the face of the franchise because I was a part of our community.
People loved you.
It's funny. The things I'm more proud of is before Southeast was totally like switched up and rebuilt and all those different things. You could find me sitting on a bench in Southeast DC before the Nats Park was built and all those things, and people would be driving by like, yo, that's LaVar Arrington. People would pull over and come in like, why are you sitting on a bench in the middle of Southeast? And I'd be like, why wouldn't I be? Mm-hmm. DC's right here. Maryland's right here. So I had just moved my parents into Upper Marlboro. So I used to go, and I had an interest in the area, but that lived there. And so I'd come down and I'd sit just like I did when I was growing up. I would sit and watch the traffic go by. And they were like, man, you're not afraid you're going to get robbed or something like that? I was like, if I got to be afraid I'm going to get robbed, then that's bad. Mm-hmm. And they're like, people never really looked at it that way, but I have always been into being into my communities. Like, I wasn't the guy that, I live here, I play for them, and I say I represent them, but they don't ever see me. No. I'd be at Berry Farms, which is like a big-time basketball summer league, like with Miles and all those guys. I did everything that was in the community, and that was why I became the face of a franchise, is because I really represented D.C. The first place I went to when I got to D.C. was a go-go joint. So I'm going into a club. I'm taking my shoes off. I was like, I've never in my life had to do something like this in my life, and it was kind of blowing me away. But I was like, if this is DC culture, I guess I need to figure it out, whatever. And so, and I really realized back then I did not need to go to a place where you need to take your shoes off to get into it. So I never did. I never had to do that ever again.
Live and learn.
You do live and you learn. But DC means a ton to me, and it always will.
We loved you.
Will.
I was there against my will. My dad was military too.
Yeah.
But we lived in Northern Virginia. But you had that effect, not just inside the square of DC. I went to District of Columbia School of Law right around the time, and I'm telling you, you had that effect on a lot of people, and it spread. If you love the Redskins, you love LaVar Arrington.
I love my time there.
And we hate the fact that we weren't as good to you as you were to us.
Well, you guys were as good to me. It's just one little hiccup in the whole thing, and that's a personal thing. That has nothing to do with the fans or the city or the team.
We're getting close to an hour and a half. We'll wrap it up here in a minute. Time flies. We could talk.
Wow.
Wait, well, then let me ask you both. You both. I said this. We can't go along in this podcast without hitting all the bases here. LaVar, you get into sportscasting. It seems to be a natural fit now. Was that just something you jumped in? I think you were on the Fan. You may still have that.
I was on the Fan.
Yeah, see, I remember
yes.
that stuff. That's 105.7.
106.7.
106.7, which used to be WJFK.
Right.
You go into announcing, and quite frankly, see, LaVar, you were like a superstar. So this is kind of now you're in people's cars and in their living rooms every day in the morning with your radio show.
Two Pros and a Cup of Joe is the morning show.
There you go.
And then Up on Game is the weekend show. So
you, Hermie, though, you are you made it to the top field
you're
NASCAR.
Okay.
Well,
no,
but
okay. That's right.
You're okay,
That's
Hermie.
accurate. That's accurate.
well, but he became so famous.
I did with the old when it came to my broadcasting career. You would call it making chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Ass, yeah. Right, yeah.
You became so much famous. Look, this guy's singing with Donny Osmond. They call it Puppy Love in the pits at Martinsville. There's no greater moment. There's no greater moment.
Cool.
I want to get LaVar's story, but I'll tell you quickly. Obviously, you may have noticed I have somewhat of an accent.
No, somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never in my wildest
New Jersey.
dreams thought about having any kind of broadcasting career at all. But there's a guy that still works for Fox Sports at this day. He's a director, done many Super Bowls, named Artie Kempner.
Mm-hmm.
Artie has a son that has autism. My middle daughter, Haley, that you'll meet later, has autism. So Artie and I formed a special bond. I was just racing. Fox was covering the races. Artie and I connected through our kids, and I helped him do a lot of events for autism awareness and things of that nature. I'm at Michigan one weekend racing. I'm racing the ARCA race and the Cup race at Michigan. Same weekend, there's a Busch Grand National race going on in Kentucky. So I get done. We do happy hour practice on Friday afternoon. I get out of the car. Artie comes down and starts talking to me. He says, "What are you doing tomorrow night?" I said, "What do you mean? I'm running the ARCA race tomorrow night, and then I'm running the Cup race Sunday." He said, tomorrow. He said, "What are you doing tomorrow night?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "I need you to fly with my broadcast team over to Kentucky and do play-by-play and to add some color in the booth commentary for the Busch Grand National race tomorrow night at Kentucky on FX." I said, "Artie, I've never done TV before." He said, "That's why I want you to go. I want you to fly with maybe Darrell Waltrip, Phil Parsons, whoever it was. We got a plane leaving here at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I want you to fly and go into the booth and do the broadcasting for the race." He said, "We'll get a sport coat for you. You know, you go to these games there. They got
Sure.
a TV truck full of, Jacob Ullman and all these people, Eric Shanks, whatever."
Yep.
So I get on this plane, never have done TV in my life. They fly me to FX, to the Xfinity race. I go up in the booth like I know what the hell I'm doing, put my little suit on, and we did the race.
Pseudo.
Rest of history.
J.C.
And
Penney's boys.
after that, not only we had, the Fox, but we had a channel called Speed Channel
Speech.
that was 24/7 motorsports.
Mm-hmm.
I went from doing one Busch Grand National race to then I'm doing pre-race show on Speed Channel on the Cup races, and I'm doing truck races on Fox and FX and Speed and FS1 eventually. And that one night started a 16-year career
That is awesome.
in television.
That's
And
awesome.
you know what? They never tried to reform me, you might say,
Right.
because the first guy I worked with, Chris Long, Muscles they called him at Fox, he's like, "Dude, you're a good guy. We got to send you to speech therapy." I'm like, "Listen, I'm not interested in speech therapy. If I can't do what y'all want me to do, I just don't need to do it." But they never did any of that, and I did shows on Fox, on Speed, on FS1, all based on somebody couldn't make it to that race in Kentucky that night. They put me on the plane and ultimately had me do it for 16 years.
But
I
you're like
find your dialect to be refreshing and,
Thank you. So,
and
see?
super
Chris Long,
inviting and entertaining.
Eric Shanks,
Yeah.
all y'all.
kiss Hermie's ass.
No, don't
Well,
do
they
that.
actually
always good to
they
me.
saw the talent, and that's
Yeah.
why they put you out there.
Well, he
I
was
mean,
a natural too, and he made
Yeah.
the sport. He brought it to the level of everybody, and he asked the question everybody wanted to hear the answer of. It wasn't with Hermie, and what I respected so much, and I hate to say nice things about you, Herm, but I'm going to do it, was that you really were just like a fan in the pits.
I always, whether I was doing pit reporting or sitting on a desk doing a pre-race show or a post-race show or in the booth calling a race, my attitude was always, I'm going to pretend like I'm sitting at home in my living room
that's the best way of
talking
doing
about it with my buddies.
It's the best
or
way to do it.
friends, and that's
because that's who's watching you.
that's right.
That's who's watching.
So and I tell you, I mentioned my daughter Haley. I got in trouble, by the way, on the first couple of podcasts for not talking about my kids.
Oh,
So I'll mention real quick that my older daughter Haley, Cora, graduated from UNC Chapel Hill. She was a cheerleader. She got
Nice.
to cheer in 2 national championship basketball games. She's a
Wow.
cheerleading coach at her high school, but now finally she's working for me and my company. My youngest daughter Naomi is a freshman softball player at Randolph-Macon. Proud of her. And I've already mentioned my middle daughter Haley, who is now 23 years old. She was diagnosed with autism at 2.5.
beautiful.
And
Beautiful
so
young lady.
That became mine and my brother's mission on our foundation over the years, was creating awareness and we've over the years been able to raise and donate almost $2 million to different families across Southside Virginia.
That's awesome.
To give them some services and things that they need.
Now I can't make fun of him for the next half
can't.
hour, dude.
You can't.
I mean, like he's an
No.
angel.
So now
no
laugh
good.
at me.
Yeah, I'm not letting.
That'd
Nope.
be no good.
So LaVar, how did you do it? How did you get in? I mean, now you're a natural, of course, and you were always a great interview when you were playing. I mean, you were never a dull moment there. How did you get into it? Because it just seems so natural for you. I listened to the radio show here. It's wonderful. It's great, especially the weekend thing you do.
Yeah.
That seems to be a little more just wide open, where you guys. It seems like
Open
three guys
forum.
sitting around
Yeah.
a couch talking.
Hermie knocked it out of the park on it. It's just being you. It's understanding the structure of what media has to offer and which forum that you're in. When I'm on television as an analyst, it's a little bit more, uniform in what it is that you're doing. Less time to say a whole lot. You have to say a whole lot in a little bit of time. And then as it applies to radio and open form media, I wrote for the Washington Post. And so I wanted to challenge myself because I always was intrigued by the way media could make or break a career.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, so I was raised to be a pretty honest dude. I'm a pretty straight shooter. I shoot right from the hip. And I'm dangerously honest. So it could be offensive, but if you ask me, I'm gonna tell you. I'm not going to put my ideas and my thoughts on you. But if you ask me, then you're gonna get what you're asking for, and I'm gonna answer it. And there just were people that always said you got to make sure you get into media. You need to learn how to do media because you have a lot to say. And one of the biggest things in media is people are afraid to say what their true feelings and their opinions are. And if you're one of those guys that actually has a real opinion and you can actually communicate it in a way that it's authentically you, then you would be really good at doing media. So for me, I jumped into media. I actually started doing my own shows, segments, while I was still playing. And that was my introduction into it. I was working for Comcast Sports, and I would do segments and do a Monday radio hit where I would just do a segment or two. But that was my getting my feet wet and acclimated to it. And although it got me in trouble, I got in trouble a lot for being in media because, again, I was unapologetically honest about what I thought and what I felt. But once I became a bona fide media personality, that became a true asset. So being able to control my truth and being true to my opinions, like I'll give you a great example. Bruce Arians slaps the dude upside the head last week in the game, right? And everybody's up in arms about it. Oh, my gosh, he slapped him. You can't treat him like a little boy. I said it's absurd that he got fined $50,000. That's my opinion. Why is that my opinion? Because in the game of football, if you understand the culture, if you understand how people interact, the relationship dynamics, the bonds that are built, and what takes place, first of all, if you look at it, his hand glances his helmet. Yeah. It doesn't even really hit his helmet that hard. But then secondly, he's trying to preserve him. The intent of him getting to him is not only to just preserve him, but it was to preserve their team, because in that moment, there could have been something that happened that costed him. It could have been something in that moment that costed the team. And that was him, to me, intent-wise, was trying to defuse it by getting him. Mm-hmm. A lot of people didn't like that I said that. Now, to some in media, they will go back on it. Oh, I'm sorry I said it. I didn't mean it that way. What I meant to say was, not me.
Good.
I said it. I meant it.
So those keyboard cowboys can't make you change your mind or apologize, right?
If you name it, it could be anything that, like, I came out and I it's a much deeper rabbit hole as it applies to being true to your opinions, no matter what people think or what they say. But I've never been one to side with the mob unless I feel like what if it makes sense, then I'll side with it. But I'm not going to be pressured into. They're saying that this is what it's supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to be. So that's what I'm going to say in order to stay out of the way.
You give such insight, not the X's and O's, but the mindset,
Yeah.
the ethic, and everything there. I mean, that's really the part of football that's the real human element of football. You bring that to the table. It's what makes you
'Cause
really.
you can do X's. A lot of people can do X's and O's. But if you can get into talking about the mindset of it or what goes into the game planning of it, just talking about even, these games this weekend and how they played out with Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen and how that looked and the mindset of each team or the way that Kyle Shanahan is guiding the 49ers. The 49ers might mess around and win it all this year just because Kyle Shanahan is so innovative and creative in how his mindset and his approach to game plans are. Yeah, he's using his best player all over the field in Deebo Samuels, his best lineman. He's using him all over the field and putting him in motion and having him do lead blocks and using him like a tight end. It's just the idea of being able to explain sports in a way where, like you said, I'm sitting on my couch, we're sitting at the bar, whatever it may be. It is a real conversation. It's not, hey, welcome to the show. This is LaVar Arrington here. Okay, let's break it down this. Okay, we saw that they had a 22 personnel, 2 backs, 2 tight ends. They came up, they lined up, and what they were doing is they're going to seal that edge off, and then what they're going to do, they're going to stretch him out, and then he's going to get inside of that tackle, and you can see right there, that's going to be
He's
a 3-4.
imitating somebody. I can't figure it
It
out.
doesn't even matter who it would be,
like
right?
everybody.
Everybody sounds like that.
Everybody.
Hey, like that.
Everybody
the one,
sounds
the
like
one
that.
thing that when I started doing TV, one of the things that's similar is I was still racing when I started doing TV.
Right.
So the biggest concern I had is calling at my buddies. I mean, really.
It's a big thing.
But I'm
because
gonna
some
tell
of
you
them will get upset with you.
Not even 6 months into my TV career, Dale Earnhardt Jr., who's a close friend of mine, had some concussion issues.
Yeah.
Had multiple concussions.
affected his racing.
And he was not performing well. He wasn't doing well. And I was one of the ones on the on the
That had
broadcast
the
team
insight
that were
of
the
it.
closest to him.
Yeah.
So I went and saw him. I said,
Is it okay if I say
they
it?
want me to really be honest about your on-track performance. Because Dale Jr. was kind of like because whenever he was there, we wanted everybody to interview Dale Jr., interview Dale Jr. Dale Jr. was like kind of shying away. Go interview somebody that's running up front. I'm not the guy. And he would kind of shy away from the interviews. But I went and saw him one day on his bus at Martinsville. And I said, dude, he said, let me tell you something. And Dale Jr., if you don't know him, is a tremendous historian of the sport.
Yes.
He said, you're not going to make it on TV if you don't tell the truth. And by the way, if people that you're talking about in the media, like me and other drivers, can't handle the truth about what you're saying, if they come to you mad because you're telling something truth, if it's your opinion, if they can't respect that, and if they're not your friend anymore, they're not your friend anyway. So
Indeed.
that
What an
made
amazing
me-
admission.
Yeah,
so
that's
then I said,
pretty
look,
awesome.
if Dale Jr. got it, I really don't care about everybody else.
Yeah.
And so it made it much easier for me to just tell the truth.
I've had guys want to fight me.
I'm sure.
Like, he can't
I think
tackle
you're trying
well.
to take food off the table.
He doesn't know how to tackle. He needs to go to tackling school. Guy sees me on the sideline, keep my effing name out your mouth, F you, da-da-da, this and that. And
Hey, that happens here in politics.
Yeah, and
I heard you got called under the rug a little bit.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, well, I have more Pro Bowls than you. I'm a higher draft pick than you. I'm retired, and my career is better than yours at the way it's going right now. And quite frankly, even if it wasn't, my understanding of this game is you're doing yourself a disservice by tackling the way you're tackling. So if you want to fight me over that, then you're in a safe place because there's security between us while you're saying it. But you can always find me if you want to. You don't have to always talk to me while security here. You can always find me because I'm still a tooth chipper. I might be retired, but I still got something for you. I got something left for
tooth
you.
chipper.
A tooth
Oh, a
chipper.
tooth
How about
chipper.
that?
So that's but the idea of it is, if you're going to be that guy,
I gotta say, I'm a runner.
yeah, well, only if it's
I'm gonna talk my way out of it, kind of.
I'm not even going to tell. Sometimes you got to try to talk your way out of it.
I'm a check writer.
I mean,
hey, would $100 help?
I
this?
found myself in talk yourself out of it situations where it's like, no.
Look, my
I do not wanna
deductible,
deal
my
with that.
medical deductible is like $500. If I
Right.
just give that to you, so you won't break my face and I have to go to the hospital, can we just do it that way? That was my deal.
I just have
Look.
this horrible problem of not wanting to back down when somebody challenges you.
I understand
in
that,
way.
but that's part of what made you what
Yeah.
you were
Yes, sir.
as a player. Look, we got to unfortunately
Darn, it's
wrap
over.
this up. Man,
This
but
was great.
LaVar, I just
Great.
want to personally thank you. I know you're here on behalf of Pace-O-Matic and all that, but just sitting in this interview, watching the passion that you have and where you came from and what you mean what you say, we can tell that. And so we appreciate you being here on behalf of Bill and I and everybody on this podcast. Thank you for lending your support and your support to this cause is
And what an
is
honor.
amazing.
What an honor to speak with you. Really
It's all
is.
mine. It's all mine. And again, like I said, I love what Pace-O-Matic is doing. We're impacting communities. I mean, we've now impacted 2 or 3 football communities as we've been on this journey.
Have you noticed that everybody that works at Pace likes each other and they get along? There's a family
It's
atmosphere.
pretty cool, right?
Even
I had the
Farley is
opportunity to
pretty nice.
Mike. It's been great working with them, and to have this all culminate to this moment where we're together and we're focused in on one common goal. I'm happy to be a part of the good fight and what's taking place. So this has been good.
As we close it out, we'll remind everybody that Pace-O-Matic is an entertainment company which develops gaming software that players love to play and can use their skills to win every time. Plus, these games of skill provide vital revenue for family-owned businesses like bars, restaurants, convenience stores, and truck stops. Bill, sign us off.
I'm Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm leaning right.
I'm Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left. We'll see you next time right here on the podcast.
Bye, guys.